Good morning, I'm Angela Lagunzad Castro. It is Friday, second day of January, bringing you Morning Matters because your mornings matter. Now, first on the agenda, as the new year begins, a new social weather station survey shows Filipinos are less optimistic than last year. Less than half now expect their quality of life to improve in the next 12 months, the lowest level in 16 years. Here's a report.
As the clock struck midnight, the skies above Rizal Park in Luneta, Manila lit up with a towering fireworks display. The view was nothing short of spectacular for the thousands who welcomed the new year there. The fireworks show lasted for about 10 minutes. At the Quezon Memorial Circle, some Filipinos chose to spend the first day of 2026 here. We spoke to several of them. Despite the country's controversies, many say they remain hopeful as the new year begins.
Yung pag-asa, wala naman yun kung hindi ka magsusumikap sa buhay, di ba? Siguro hindi naman kailangan matakot. Harapin mo na lang kung ano yung meron na darating.
May pag-asa po. Pag-asa. Prayer ang kailangan lang.
Based on the latest study by the social weather stations, many Filipinos say they expect their quality of life to improve over the next 12 months. According to the survey conducted from November 24 to 23, 2025, 44% of Filipinos are optimistic. This is higher than the 38% who believe there will be no change in their lives and the 8% who expect things to get worse. If we look purely at the numbers, the optimism level may seem high, but this is lower than the 90% recorded last year and the 96% logged in the 2023 survey ahead of 2024. Based on SWS data, this is the lowest optimism level since 2009 or in the last 16 years. According to an expert, Filipinos have been heavily affected by the flood control scandal.
Itong nangyaring flood control scandal, yung corruption sa gobyerno that I think is really taking its toll on the public and the perception, particularly with regards to the promise of good governance.
Because of this, these have also become part of Filipinos' manifestations for the year.
Sana po, maibalik na nila yung perang ninakaw nila.
Bakit po kayo affected doon sa issue na yun?
Kasi syempre nagbabayad din po ako ng tax.
Maayos na yung sa flood control. Yung about doon. Ang laking pera nun sayang.
Anong manifestation nyo for 2026?
World peace. Iwas kurakot.
22 people were injured after a grenade exploded during New Year celebrations in Barangay Dalapitan, Matalam, Cotabato. The blast occurred while residents were watching fireworks along the roadside. Among the injured was a 12-year-old boy, while nearby establishments sustained damage from the force of the explosion. Police said the attack was carried out by riding in tandem suspects who fled the scene on a motorcycle without a license plate. The explosive used was identified as an MK2 hand grenade. A manhunt is ongoing as police maintain heightened security to prevent further incidents.
Actually, in line yan sa aming pinalakas na anti-illegal drugs operation kasi sa mga suspect yan is involved sa illegal drugs. So we have a series of anti-illegal drugs na at napiktuhan yung kanilang gagawa sila ng mga possible na mga senaryo to divert yung aming attention.
The Department of Health reported 235 firework-related injuries from December 21, 2025 to January 1, 2026, with most victims aged 19 and below. Mobile journalist Arles de los Santos has the report.
This 8-year-old boy can't stop crying when brought to Tondo Medical Center. His hand was bloody after it got hit by a 5-star he lit on the morning of January 1st. His mother said she did not notice that the child managed to set off last-minute fireworks. Meanwhile, this 14-year-old Chin was hit by illegal firecracker Goodbye Philippines. This 16-year-old's hand, on the other hand, was mangled by another prohibited firework Kabase. He said A rider just handed him the firecracker only to realize that it was already lit.
Pagpasok ko po sa loob, bigla na lang pong pumutok sa kamay ko. 3 po. Sabay-sabay po pumutok.
His resolution after the incident:
Hindi na ako magpapaputok.
from December 21, 2025 until the morning of January 1, 2026, a total of 73 fireworks-related injuries were reported at the Tondo Medical Center. 4 newer cases were identified as severe, which could mean amputation of limbs. What concerns doctors most? Many of the victims are minors. According to the general surgeon, their youngest patient is only 6 years old, who lit up a cinturon ni Judas at the instruction of an adult.
Bibihira lang yung matanda na naputukan. Kung may naputukan man, natalsikan lang sila dahil marapit sila sa area. Pero yung mga grabe, usually mga bata.
Across the country, the Department of Health recorded a total of 235 fireworks-related injuries since December 21st, 62 of which were recorded just right after the New Year's Eve revelry. Minors made up bulk of the cases. This is why the DOH not only wants a total ban on household use of firecrackers, but is also pushing for penalizing parents whose children become victims.
Yung bata, hindi talaga dapat kumahawak ng paputok. Bibigyan ko ng halimbawa, DJ Sam, Manong Ted. Kung mga kutsilyo nga, ingat tayong ipahawak sa mga bata. Mga kutsilyo, mga baril, mga bomba, lalo na baril at bomba. Ito pa kaya, pulbura to.
Oo.
Aside from fireworks-related injuries, the DOH also sounded the alarm on non-communicable diseases like stroke and asthma. From December 21st, East Avenue Medical Center has logged 86 stroke cases, 11 acute coronary syndrome incidents, and 8 asthma patients. The health department says there's no doubt unhealthy eating habits did this. Add to that, the smog or polluted air right after the merrymaking that could also aggravate heart ailments.
Ang advice ng DOH is, yung mga high risk, huwag muna lumabas kung kaya. Sa bahay na lang muna. Yung mga, kung kailangan lumabas, mag-face mask po. Mas maganda kung N95.
DOH also noted 52 trauma cases brought about by intoxication. Of this, 38 were vehicular accidents. Authorities have also monitored at least 1 stray bullet victim in Bulacan. In all, according to the PNP, there were 11 reported indiscriminate firing incidents. And to the organization's dismay, among those involved was a policeman.
Meron po tayong mga complainants na 3 minor, kaya po kaatribute po nung kanyang kasong kinakaharap ay meron din pong kasamang grave threat in relation to RA 7610 dahil nagkaroon po ng trauma attack.
Kapatid Arles de Los Santos, we are One News.
Don't go away. We'll be back with more stories after the break. Keep it here on One News. Good morning, I'm Angela Lagunzad Castro, and here on Morning Matters, we talk about the most pressing issues and give you the context behind the headlines. The Second Congressional Commission on Education says 24 million Filipinos are functionally illiterate. The commission also found that only 8% of an estimated 5.1 million children with disabilities are currently enrolled in public schools, citing gaps in inclusive education. EDCOM, too, is calling for stronger coordination and a reset of education and social services to reach the most vulnerable sectors. Joining us now is Hannibal Camua, Executive Director of the Philippine Business for Education, or PBED. Good morning, Sir Hannibal. It's nice to see you. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, Ma'am Angela, and good morning to all the viewers of One News and Morning Matters.
Right, so we have a lot to talk about, but first, 24 million Filipinos are functionally illiterate. From PBED's perspective, what is the biggest systematic failure behind this?
Well, we've been talking about this for quite some time, Ma'am Angela. No?
Yes.
54 million was actually the results coming in from the results of the FLEMS Functional Literacy and Mass Media Survey, which was done by the PSA in the middle of last year. So the 24 million actually it's very sad, but it's not surprising. We've been saying this. It's not surprising because for the longest time we've been in the country has been experiencing a learning crisis, and this is the result of that learning crisis. So basically, nakikita natin that ito na po yung resulta ng decades of neglect in our education system, and now it's that the results are actually showing from this FLEMS survey and to other let's say surveys and international assessments like the PISA and also the CPLM. Nakikita natin na yung resulta niya, nangungulela tayo. So yeah, it's a result of the education crisis, the ongoing and the lingering education crisis that the country is experiencing for a long time.
Right. But you said it right, that this is not surprising anymore. No, every year we would talk about this and we would talk about the steps that we need to do. But what do you think, walang nangyayari with all the things that we are, discussing about it, and with all the guidelines or the systems na pinag-uusapan na dapat gawin? Do you think that yung pabago-bago din ng sistema, we're not sticking into the system that we are, implementing, is also part of this situation?
Well, you hit it right on the mark, Ms. Angela, no? Because again, education reforms take time to, let's say, it takes time, no? So basically, titingnan natin yung ating basic education system, including let's say pre-grade 1 until makagraduate yan ng grade 12. It would take, let's say, again at the minimum 12 years, 13, 14 years, no? Para makita natin yung resulta. So yung pabagong mga polisiya, yung mga knee-jerk na reaction na, baba tayo sa ganito, so kailangan ito yung gawin natin, without really thinking on, let's say, the long-term policy implications and the implementation of that. Nakaka-apekto po yan, no? Kung titingnan din natin, may mga policies na ginawa po ang ating kagawaran ng edukasyon na meron naman po, merong positive effect. Pero also, we want to look at yung continuity and sustainability of those policies, yung mga magagandang policies nagkakaroon po ng magandang epekto. So that remains to be seen.
Kasi nangyayari minsan, 'di ba, ganito, okay, let's use mother tongue. Tapos may lalabas na data ulit na study na we're always lagging behind. Sasabi, hindi, wag na natin gamitin yung mother tongue. Ito naman yung gawin natin. So, in effect, like what you've said, di ba, it takes time to see yung growth, no, or to see the growth of that system that we are trying to implement. But what I'm seeing also in this study is about yung inclusive education natin dito sa Philippines. So, what is needed to be done in terms of inclusive education in the Philippines? Because only 8% of children with disabilities are enrolled in public schools, no?
Well, that's
very alarming for me,
Yes. Accessibility is one key issue for inclusive education here in the country. Particularly if we're talking about public schools, let's say how inclusive are our public schools in terms, in providing for, let's say, education and support for those, let's say, with special needs, no? Kukonti lang po yan. Malaki yung kakulangan natin, especially sa public schools, sa mga guro na nag-specialize on
yung mga SPED teachers tawag, di ba?
Yes. So malaki yung kakulangan po doon, no? And if you're going to look for, let's say, yung mga eskwelahan na nag-o-offer nito, karamihan po nito ay nasa pribadong sektor, and it comes for medyo may kamahalan po yan. So that's what I've said, accessibility is the issue. So if we want to increase that, let's say, 8%, kung gusto natin na tumaas yan at maging mas accessible ang inclusive education sa ating bansa, kailangan patatagin natin we have to strengthen inclusive education in public schools. So that starts with, of course, training teachers to provide for to teach inclusive education, yung may mga special needs. That also includes special materials and resources, no? Na crafted talaga para sa mga pangangailangan ng ganong segment ng ating mga learners. So, as what I've said, kailangan po ng improvement as well. Kasi that 8% is very dismal. It means that we are excluding 92% of learners with special needs. So that's very alarming as well.
Exactly. You pointed out several important factors, increase of SPED teachers, yan. Marami tayong kakulangan dyan. And of course, yung classroom suitable for persons with disability, learning materials. And one more that I would always say is a key factor here is yung money. Yung tuition fee, no? Kasi right now, I think, no, based on my reports, on my observations, mas marami yung nakaka-afford ng mga special classes for special children with special needs, yung mga merong kakayahan lang magbayad. But kapag nandun ka na sa kabilang sektor, wala na, 'di ba? Parang ang essence nun, wala na, hindi ko na lang pag-aaralin yung anak ko kasi hindi ko naman ma-afford yun. So I think what else can the government, 'di ba, sa tulong ng iba pang mga partners can do to be able to give this to pangkalahatan, kaya nga inclusive
Yeah. Well, correct, no, Ma'am Angela. I think one of the low-hanging fruits in terms of to increase access is to increase as well our capacity to give vouchers, no. So we've seen that it worked for quite some time, though. For this implementation, nakita natin that vouchers work, no, for senior high school. While there needs to be improvement, no, kailangan ng improvement, particularly for safeguards, to avoid, let's say, yung mga corruption issues on the use of vouchers. But using vouchers kasi, it democratizes, no? It democratizes access to education. As such that, if we expand natin yan at ibaba natin yung paggamit ng vouchers doon sa from grades 1 to, let's say, also grades 1 to 10, mas maraming Pilipino ang magkakaroon ng access, no, sa education, and it would solve quite a lot. It will address quite a lot of problems. No? Number one, sabi natin, may pagkukulang sa classrooms, no. Pero kung titingnan natin, merong mga eskwelahan, may mga private schools na meron pang absorptive capacity, no, kaya pang mag-absorb ng mga learners. So bakit hindi natin bigyan ng vouchers yung mga lugar na kung saan nakikita natin na meron ng congestion on public schools. So the same can also be applied to inclusive and special education. To increase access, to democratize access to inclusive and special education, bigyan natin ng specialized vouchers yung mga qualified na mga learners para makapag-access sila ng, let's say, special and alternative education sa mga pili at mga private institutions na nag-o-offer po ng ganitong klaseng program. So, it's for me, a strengthened and expanded voucher program hits two birds or a lot of birds with one stone, and it's actually a low-hanging fruit too.
And of course, so looking at these studies for the long-term effect, no, of course, economy natin, sa business sector, because businesses often say education gaps affect workforce readiness. So how soon will these learning losses be felt in the job market? Kasi yun ang sinasabi nila, maraming jobs actually, pero ang problema, yung matching nung skills doon sa tao nung job
Yeah, again, when we're talking of let's say skills mismatch, that has been the longest story for quite some time, no? That there are a lot of jobs, the private sector, yung mga kumpanya natin nagsasabi, madami kaming opening, but yung mahirap is to find the right candidate that possess, let's say, the skills that they need. So what is actually happening is yung private sector ngayon, aside from, let's say, upon entry to the workforce, kapag na-hire nila, may mga additional training to build on the skills. And we are not talking of technical skills here. We're talking of basic, let's say, life skills, communication skills, yung mga critical thinking skills, which sana natututunan nila sa eskwelahan pa lang. Pagka-graduate nila, dapat meron na sila noon. Pero because of this problem, no, ito nga pinag-uusapan natin, functional literacy nga na dapat nasa eskwelahan pa lang, nabibuild na sa kanila. So may mga lumalabas ng sistema, may mga gumagraduate sa education system natin na hindi functionally literate. So, number one, mahihirapan niyang maghanap ng trabaho. And then number two, it widens the job skills mismatch. Kasi nga, yung hinahanap ng pribadong sektor, yung hinahanap ng ating labor force market, ay hindi akma yung skills ng mga gumagraduate na sa ating education system. So, mas nagwa-widen yung gap. Now, merong mga policies, no? May mga nagawa na rin yung Department of Education at ang ating mga education agencies kasama ang CHED, kasama ang TESDA to strengthen the senior high school program, particularly to strengthen the TechVoc, no, the Tech Pro track as what they would call it now. So, isa ito sa mga magagandang hakbang para matugunan yung job skills mismatch. But again, nagsisimula pa lang eh. So, how do we sustain this? How do we sustain these kinds of yung mga policy efforts natin, itong mga implementation natin na, as what I've said, takes time to really produce the gains, no? It takes time to, let's say, para makita natin na gumagana siya at nagiging epektibo siya. So how do we make sure that is actually sustainable and it will be implemented in the years to come?
Parang it takes consistency talaga eh to build credibility, ika nga. Di ba yun yung mga Of course, di ba? And then there's one thing before I let you go, Sir Hadibal. Meron ako kasi nakitang also alarming dito sa study na to that we're talking about. Yung isa nakikita nilang factor, no, that affect yung learning literacy ng isang mag-aaral is of course the malnutrition, no, yung stunting and malnutrition problem. Na people are calling for system reset for this, on how do we address this kind of problem, because I think meron tayo sa batas natin yung first 1,000 days eh. 'Di ba? Yun ang importante na kailangan mapakain natin na maayos yung magulang na nagbubuntis pa lang, and then para habang pagpalaki niya, pagpalabas, pagpanganak ay maging okay, etc. And continuous yung program. Pero where do we go from there? Kasi what's happening right now, I think it's not effective or hindi talaga na-implement. No? Yun yung nakikita natin doon eh. What do you have to say to that?
Well, number one, the system reset, I agree, but I think we need to look at, after the reset, what needs to be done, right? We reset, pero ano yung gagawin after the reset, no? Because for the longest time, we've seen na putol-putol po yung, let's say, spectrum of implementation in the first 1,000 days.
That's true.
No? So, let's say, for example, habang pinagbubuntis ng ina yung bata, nasa pangangalaga siya ng Department of Health o ng DOH. So, first 1,000 days.
DSWD, oo.
Yes, may papanganak siya, so and so. And then, meron pong mga programa na ini-implement din yung DSWD. May kasabay po yan. I think meron din pong mga let's say, elements ang ating Pantawid Filipino program that would apply to, let's say, pregnant and lactating mothers. Pero pagdating po niyan, let's say, doon po sa transition or sa handoff from DSWD to the education agency, kapag nagsimula na pong mag-aral yung bata, saan po na nakikita yung pagkukulang in terms of, let's say, nutrition and feeding? Kasi sa eskwelahan po, ang nutrition or yung feeding program in the schools, alam po natin that that's not enough eh. Hindi po enough yung feeding program. Kasi look at it, we can look at it this way. Kapag summer, wala nang feeding program sa eskwelahan. Balik sa pagiging malnourished yung bata kapag summer. Tapos pagbalik niya sa eskwelahan, kailan magkakaroon ng feeding program, doon lang siya ulit magiging, properly nourished. So,
again, consistency.
Yes, that alone is a gap. So I think kailangan natin maging consistent, no? Kailangan natin maging consistent in this implementation para makita natin talaga at ma-reap natin yung, let's say, positive results of this interventions. Kasi as we are looking right now, medyo piecemeal siya eh. Medyo pautay-utay siya at putol-putol. So kaya hindi natin nakikita kaagad yung resulta.
And I think kasi din, yung nangyayari per region, hindi nakukonsentrate sila sa isang region lang at nakakalimutan yung iba. That as of now, 40% lang daw nagagamit ng DSWD doon sa kanilang itong first 1,000 days na program. But of course, marami pa tayong pinag-uusapan tungkol dito. Maraming factors affecting our education. But then again, we don't have so much time. Thank you so much for your insights, Hannibal Kamwa, Executive Director of the Philippine Business for Education or PBED. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you so much. Happy New Year to everyone. Thank you.
Now stay tuned. Morning Matters will be back after a short break. Welcome back. You're still watching Morning Matters here on One News. Starting today, the Land Transportation Office is enforcing a ban on e-bikes and e-trikes along major thoroughfares in Metro Manila. The restriction covers key roads including EDSA, C5 Road, Rojas Boulevard, and the stretch of Quirino or from Quirino Avenue to Magallanes South Luzon Expressway, which authorities say are unsafe for slower and smaller vehicles. Drivers who violate the ban may face penalties under existing traffic laws, including fines and possible vehicle impoundment. The LTO said it will deploy law enforcers at critical points along these roads to inform motorists of the policy and ensure proper enforcement. Joining us now is Engineer Rene Santiago, an urban transport expert, as the ongoing EDSA rehabilitation continues to affect motorists and commuters. Good morning, Engineer. Thanks for joining me today.
Good morning. Happy to be back with Morning Matters after 1 year.
But I had you last week, if I'm not mistaken, on my program, that's News and Views. But Happy New Year, and it's so nice to see you.
Yun eh.
Yes, yes.
Really
So what are your observations on the ongoing EDSA rehabilitation?
Well, supposedly the major disruptive part was conducted during the holidays. And I have not heard of any stories of horror stories. So, which is a good sign that the timing was right. But we're hoping that they have done the worst part, no? But the sad part of it is we're still talking of EDSA, not only after 1 year, but after 20 years, we're still stuck on the same issue of EDSA rehab, no?
I remember you saying before about yung paggawa nito na utay-utay, that you wanted it sana ng yung, alam mo na, yung pangmalakasan na paggawa instead of doing this. Tama po?
Yes, because that was the issue that faced the government in 20 years ago, about 2006, I think. And they chose to do the soft rehab at that time, reblocking. Again, because of some objections or some possible disruption on traffic. No. Now we faced that decision last year, and then we chose again to do the soft part, in the hope that or on the promise that it will not be harmful. No? But the fact is, we'll keep on postponing the hard part of rehab. No? We choose not to address the main problem, and we try to avoid the pain, forgetting the fact that we cannot have progress without a little sacrifice here and there.
All right. So, well, they introduced new technology daw in doing this EDSA rehabilitation. What are your thoughts on that?
Again, it is a yarn or a nice story spin. It is not a it is not a new technology. In fact, that's a technology that was introduced in 1960 in Germany and came to the Philippine shores about 10 years ago or even 15 years ago, recognized by DPWH. So, but that story, I think, is just a palamuti to give the impression that government has done its homework from June to December and came up with something new.
But do you think that the reason why they're doing this is because we are going to host the ASEAN Summit next year?
Well, again, that's a cosmetic, no? They want to make it appear that we have a nice road in time for the ASEAN next year, which is not a bad idea. But again, typical of the Philippine way, gusto nating magpakita ng magandang hinaharap, but without addressing the underlying problem. So the facade or the appearance is more important than the root cause of the problem.
Well, of course, we want to expound what you said earlier about deeper structural improvement in EDSA because one could say na, o sige, puro lang tayong criticizing. But on your part, what solution can you give?
You know, EDSA is a emblematic of our inability to move on. We have discussed the EDSA rehab more than 20 years ago.
Right.
And it's the same issue that is plaguing our other transport and infrastructure projects. Inability to move on. The Cebu BRT in the part of Cebu is again another symbol of an inability to move on. It was conceived in 2010, 2011, implemented in 2013, supposed to be completed in 2018. And yet, it is not yet done, and it may be completed in 2028 or 2030 if ever. So yung inability to complete, to address the issue is the same feature that hobbled us on EDSA. Hindi tayo makaalis sa EDSA. Bakit ba?
Hindi maka-move forward. Yeah, I remember that. I was still a kid when we were talking about this. Well, I heard about this story, no? But, of course, yung mga mostly na maapektuhan po nitong mga ginagawang rehabilitation sa EDSA are the commuters, no, the working class na kasama po natin dito sa bansa. Do you think yung traffic mitigation that they are doing right now is working so far?
You know, I don't mind the traffic congestion if it is the effect of a real solution, no? Because the solution to the poor commuters is really expansion of the capacity ng MRT3.
Transport system.
If you add all the idle Dalian trains, you know, 6 years or 7 years, 8 years after they were delivered to the Philippines, many of them, 39 out of 48, are still idle. Again, symptomatic of our inability to move out of that situation, no? We're still stuck. But if you build the 39 to complete the 48 Dalian trains working, that is enough to handle all the capacity to EDSA busway. In short, the commuters, the ordinary commuters who do not own cars will not be affected. The only one that will be affected by a real hard solutions on EDSA are the car owners. So I don't mind that happening.
Pero, well, to be fair, no, parang last year, they were able to use the Dalian trains. The reason why hindi sila magamit yun for the last few years ago because hindi daw kasya dun sa track ng train. Tama po ba yun?
Kung kasya yung siyam, kakasya din yung iba. Pare-pareho yun.
Iba daw. Kaya nga, di ba,
it's a poor excuse. It's a poor excuse.
So what else can we do, 'di ba? Pagdating nga po sa transport system natin while doing this EDSA rehabilitation dahil most affected nga po ang working class natin. And of course, sabi nga nila, ang traffic would greatly affect our economy.
That's only on EDSA. The traffic will adjust. Kahit na isara mong EDSA, it will have a pain, but the traffic will achieve some equilibrium on its own. When EDSA suffered a lot during the MRT3 construction, we survived it. And I think we can survive a hard reset on EDSA. It is not, it's called C4, meaning may C5 tayo, may C3, no? And we have 10 radial roads. The network, I think, can handle the repositioning, the temporary rearrangement of traffic.
But with the ongoing rehabilitation, do you think this would finally ease congestion on EDSA once it's done?
No, it won't. It is
why?
a cosmetic solution. It doesn't really address the volume capacity or the capacity limitations of EDSA.
So do you think road widening would also be a good solution on that? Kasi di ba marami pa ring mga establishments on the side of EDSA eh. Kaya nagiging
hindi na pwede yung road widening talaga eh. Kasi
hindi na rin pwede.
You reach the limit in some sections nagiging 4 lane, nagiging 2 lane na gano'n.
That's
Alam mo,
true.
isang dapat na i-address din, tanggalin lahat ng U-turn dyan sa EDSA.
Why do you think so?
It is a bad solution to traffic congestion.
Nagbabottleneck.
Tinanggal natin yung mga traffic signals, pinalitan ng U-turn, no? That is a poor solution. It works only when traffic is light. When traffic is bumper to bumper, it worsens traffic congestion.
But do you also see yung, kasi 'di ba, after daw ng pandemic, parang anong tawag yung purchase revenge yung tao. So there were a lot of cars right now on the street, especially on EDSA, because maraming bumili ng mga kotse. Do you see that also as a factor that affect the traffic along EDSA?
Well, it will continue to do so, no? Not just on EDSA, but all the road network of Manila. In fact, more severely probably elsewhere, no? As the economy grow and people have money, they will buy cars, especially when our public transport is stagnant and deteriorating, no? But ikaw nga, Manila is only one problem. The entire country, if we really decongest Metro Manila and put development elsewhere, the congestion on Metro
So it's not
Manila will
centric here.
resolve by itself.
Oo. Hindi lahat pupunta dito for opportunities, ika nga.
Yes.
Oo. Pero aside from EDSA, what other major roads do you think need rehabilitation?
I think C5 they have done a lot of reblocking on C5. And but the ultimate solution dyan sa mga C5 and even Commonwealth is lacking, no? Doon sa Marcos Highway and Commonwealth share the same problem. Incomplete yung network, wala siyang mga cross-secondary road. And that is the reason why they resort to horrible U-turns.
Well, lastly, with the ongoing rehabilitation on EDSA, is there still enough time para po matapos po ito in time for ASEAN Summit?
Yung sa pang-display, yung pang-display sa ASEAN Summit, I think tatapusin nila. When I call display, yung asphalt repaving, it will look very good for the ASEAN who will use them. It will look very bad elsewhere. I hope the ASEAN delegates will not be brought there, and that is their intention. The whole stretch of EDSA, the rehab, will not be completed by then.
Right. All right. Thank you so much for your insights, Engineer Rene Santiago, an urban transport expert. Maraming salamat po sa inyong oras.
Thank you very much.
Now, in other news, Malacanang said the Office of the Ombudsman is now verifying and authenticating documents being referred to as the Leviste files. Palas Press Officer Undersecretary Claire Castro, citing Assistant Ombudsman Clavano, said documents circulating outside official channels and vulnerable to alteration cannot be treated as conclusive evidence. Castro added that multiple versions of the files have emerged and show inconsistencies. Earlier, Batangas Representative Leandro Leviste released a list of 75 Department of Public Works and Highways projects worth 8 billion under the proposed 2025 national budget. The Bureau of Immigration has launched a nationwide manhunt for 2 South Korean fugitives who escaped from detention in Muntinlupa. The BI identified the escapees as Lee Jingyu, 32, and Yang Hee-jun, 44, both facing deportation and wanted by South Korean authorities. The agency says the two are subject to Interpol red notices and pose a serious risk to public safety, prompting an intensified search in coordination with law enforcement. Passenger traffic at the Ninoy Aquino International Airport hit a record 52 million in 2025. Airport operator Nuna Infrastructure Corporation says the figure breaks the previous record of 50.1 million passengers in 2024. December was the busiest month of record, with nearly 5 million passengers as Filipinos traveled for the holiday season. The agency attributes the increase to stronger demand for air travel, the entry of new international airlines, and expanded flights by local carriers. Don't go away. More matters to discuss after the break. Keep it here on One News. Welcome back. You're still watching Morning Matters here on One News. Pag-asa has released the names of typhoons expected to enter the Philippine area of responsibility this year. The 2026 list includes names such as Ada, Bashang, Kaloy, Domeng, Esther, Francisco, Gardo, Henry, Inday, Josie, Kiapo, Luis, Maymay, Neneng, Obet, Pilandok, Queenie, Rosal, Samuel, Tomas, Umberto, Venus, Waldo, Yayang, and Zenny. Pag-asa also has an auxiliary set of names ready in case the number of cyclones exceeds 25. These are Aguila, Baguis, Chito, Diego, Elena, Felino, Gunding, Harriet, Indang, and Jessa. The Rizal Memorial Sports Complex is undergoing major improvements as the Philippines proudly prepares to host its first ever WTA 125 Philippine Women's Open this January. Mobile journalist Denise Valdesancho reports.
Renovations are in full swing at the Rizal Memorial Sports Complex as the Philippines prepares to host its first ever WTA 125 Philippine Women's Open this January. With just weeks to go before the international tournament, the Philippine Sports Commission says work is continuing not just at the tennis center, but across the entire sports complex.
You give me 2-3 more weeks, you will not recognize Rizal.
Ongoing works across the whole Rizal complex includes new asphalt roads, clearing of long abandoned structures, and the installation of solar lights. For the WTA event, however, the focus remains on the tennis complex where major upgrades are being done to meet international standards. From just a few hundred, seating at the tennis center is being increased to around 2,000.
Buti na lang meron tayong WTA na i-host, international. Kailangan pagandahin naman natin, kailangan makita naman ng mga tao na it's presentable, comparable, no? If not it's the same, at least comparable with all the other WTA hostings all over the world, no?
Beyond tennis, the PSC says other facilities within Rizal are also part of the long-term redevelopment plan. Work is also planned for the aquatic center as well as the 7-story athletes dormitory being built, expected to be completed within the next 18 months. The PSC is also studying the repurposing of an abandoned bowling center inside the complex. Baseball is also on the radar with the PSC working with stakeholders to revive the historic baseball stadium. With the focus on the tennis center, PSC says work is targeted for completion by third week of January, just ahead of the tournament opening on January 26.
It's what it's all about. We're using sports to promote our country. We're using twofold palagi yan. We're using sports to develop the grassroots, the young people who will take up tennis.
Kapatid Denise Valdesancho. We are One News.
And that wraps up today's episode of Morning Matters. We hope we've given you just the right start to your morning. Let's make the day matter. I'm Angela Lagunsad Castro. Kapatid, we're One News. All sides, all the time.